Hello to the audience of the World Politics Military Channel. Have you ever asked yourself what would happen if one day a fleet of an alien race appeared in the sky and launched an invasion of Earth? It may sound far-fetched and fanciful, but in reality, the world's be at a huge disadvantage against extraterrestrial forces. The reason is that, looking at human history, there is an undeniable truth. Underdeveloped peoples have often been easily conquered, slaughtered, and enslaved by civilizations with more advanced technology during their expansion into new territories. A clear example is the fate of Native Americans or African blacks. When Western colonialists arrive, they were exploited, killed, and enslaved. In the event of an alien invasion, humanity would clearly be the less developed species. We haven't even established a base on our own moon, let alone colonized other planets in the solar system. Meanwhile, the enemy would have the ability to travel across light years of distance just to attack humanity. Moreover, a commonly referenced method for evaluating the evolutionary level of a civilization is the Kardashev scale. Originally developed by Soviet astrophysicist Nikolai Kardashev in 1964, and later refined by scientists like Carl Sagan, the scale essentially measures a civilization's level of development based on the total amount of energy it can harness. Specifically, Type 1 can utilize all the energy available on its home planet. Type 2 can harness the energy of its home star. Type 3 can utilize the energy of its entire galaxy. Although Kardashev initially believed humanity was approaching Type I Saigon, and later studies have shown that we are currently only at about 0.72 on the Type 1 scale. Any civilization capable of interstellar travel would far exceed even a basic Type 1 civilization, even if these aliens don't use technologies completely incomprehensible to us. The technological gap between them and us could still be greater than the gap between our current civilization and ancient Egypt or Mesopotamia. This does not bode well for humanity's future. If an alien race were to intercept our radio and television signals, journey across the stars, and discover something on Earth worth exterminating humanity for, would we stand a chance of defending ourselves? The answer is, we can try. The U.S. Department of Defense has already drafted contingency plans for such an event. Essentially, the plan is to fight the way small forces engage overwhelming enemies through asymmetric warfare. Asymmetric warfare is not merely a fancy term for guerrilla conflict. It also refers to imbalances between the two sides in terms of social, moral, psychological, and economic factors beyond mere military or technological strength. In the context of an alien invasion, this strategy becomes uniquely appropriate. For Earth's military, because every human being on the planet would be forced to play a role in the great resistance for the future of our species, the first step in an anti-invasion plan is to ensure that humanity is not caught off guard, though the U.S. Department of Defense has not made a public declaration. This may be the reason why the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program was launched in 2007 with a budget of up to $22 million United States dollars. The project ended 5 years later. But it wasn't until 2017 that the Pentagon officially acknowledged its existence. However, it was not the end of the story. On November 23, 2021, the U.S. Department of Defense announced the establishment of the Airborne Object Identification and Management Synchronization Group, the successor to the Task Force on Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, UAPs. The mission of this organization is to coordinate efforts within the department and the U.S. government to develop and identify objects of interest within special use airspace, while assessing and mitigating any threats related to flight safety and national security. For those unfamiliar, Special use airspace refers to restricted zones of the sky due to national security concerns. Technically, the Synchronization Group is not an official UAP program, but UAPs remain a part of its mission. Thanks to this, the world may receive early warnings about the presence of extraterrestrials if unidentified objects appear in restricted airspace. The next step is to try to determine their intent upon arriving on our planet. To do this, we will need a first contact protocol. This is currently being developed by scientists specializing in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence in St. Andrews, Scotland, with a focus on global coordination and response. It's easy to predict that the first encounter with aliens would be one of the most high-stress events in human history. Although we must mentally prepare for the worst, reacting aggressively at the very first approach of these visitors from space would ruin any chance for peace. Instead, determining their intentions should be the top priority. Unfortunately, humanity currently has no easy means of communication, which will make this task extremely difficult, unless we are attacked first. As such, a hostile first contact may be inevitable. At this point, some may wonder, what if the aliens come to Earth peacefully as scientists or explorers? That scenario is not entirely out of the question. However, as previously mentioned, advanced civilizations tend to destroy less developed species. This has been echoed by Nick Popa, former British Ministry of Defense official and investigator of unidentified aerial phenomena, who believes that the chances of a hostile encounter are far greater than those of a peaceful one. Next, in the event of an invasion, several scenarios may unfold. Suppose the aliens want Earth for themselves. Instead of using weapons of mass destruction, they might land directly on the surface to occupy it. To conduct a full-scale planetary invasion, their spacecraft and fleet would need to be large and heavy enough to transport troops and equipment. This could allow astronomers to issue early warnings, giving the US and the world time to prepare a response. The plan would begin by identifying and protecting humanity's key strategic military facilities from the aliens' initial strike. An electromagnetic pulse EMP attack were launched from orbit. Cold War contingency plans developed decades ago could be activated to prepare for just such a scenario. These preparations would likely be deployed. While a global EMP blast would destroy most civilian power grids, certain protected military infrastructure and equipment would be further reinforced. In addition, Cold War and nuclear confrontation strategies would also be reused. The US military would disperse its assets to prevent them from being wiped out in a single orbital strike. As a result, aside from a few destroyed bases, early-stage casualties might remain low, but this would only mark the beginning. Worst would still lie ahead if the aliens are not vastly superior in technology. The US military and other human armed forces might be able to destroy many of their landing craft as they enter the atmosphere. Even with advanced technology capable of interstellar travel, alien ships must still obey the laws of physics as they pass through the atmosphere at high speeds. Air resistance will cause them to heat up brightly like the sun and experience immense G-forces. This would make them vulnerable to Earth's air defense systems and fighter jets, which could potentially take out a significant number of them during descent. However, significant does not mean majority, and certainly not all. At this point, the situation would shift rapidly, as human history has shown. Just a few alien spacecraft could cause massive problems for human forces. Any extraterrestrial warship would likely be able to take out even advanced fourth-generation fighter jets, and would be more than capable of handling our most powerful surface-to-air missile systems. At that point, the aliens would swiftly eliminate Earth's aerial defense capability, establish air superiority, and pave the way for a full ground invasion. Ground combat vehicles like tanks, armored personnel carriers, and artillery will fight back and inflict some damage during the first few hours, but they will eventually be destroyed and, likely very quickly. After that, the enemy will launch successive orbital airstrikes and provide aerial support, causing massive destruction combined with their superior ground technology. Almost certainly, the conventional war phase will end within the first weekend. That's the optimistic scenario. Despite overwhelming disadvantages, nuclear missiles and bombs are unlikely to be deployed at this stage. Escalating to nuclear warfare could provoke the aliens into using weapons of mass destruction beyond our comprehension, or at the very least, it could harm the surviving population and make future resistance nearly impossible. It's important to remember that the alien ships may have traveled for many light years to reach Earth. Interstellar travel is fraught with dangers such as radiation and collisions with high-speed space debris. Therefore, their ships are likely equipped with extremely strong defensive systems, capable of withstanding impacts equivalent to nuclear explosions. As such, attempting to destroy these large transport ships with nuclear weapons while they are still in orbit will likely be ineffective. When the conventional warfare phase ends and nuclear weapons become ineffective, the longest, most bitter, and most brutal phase of the war will begin: prolonged and intense guerrilla warfare. The objective during this phase is simple: kill as many aliens and destroy as much of their equipment as possible. The idea is to make the cost of invasion so high that the enemy has no choice but to withdraw. To carry out this strategy, the United States must implement a Cold War plan designed to ensure the survival and operation of the government in the event of an invasion. This contingency plan is meant to preserve a constitutionally legitimate executive branch, including the president, cabinet, and various relocation facilities hidden across the country. These would shelter those performing the core functions of government, legislative, executive, and judicial. This would ensure more flexible command and control in the face of an alien invasion. Although many of these facilities will certainly be destroyed, all of human society will shift to a state solely devoted to war, surpassing even ancient Sparta. Civilians will be trained to become irregular warriors, capable of inflicting damage on the enemy through ambushes, raids, terrorist attacks, and any other form of asymmetric warfare. Women will be prioritized for protection and rarely sent into battle unless absolutely necessary for one simple reason: human fighters will suffer unimaginable casualties and must be replaced as quickly and abundantly as possible. Women will be tasked with bearing as many children as possible to ensure a stable manpower supply for the long-term resistance. This might require temporarily setting aside some traditions and moral values for the sake of the species' future. By reproducing faster than the invaders, humanity will gain a crucial advantage over the alien forces. The reason is that the aliens will need to transport troops and supplies across interstellar distances. And no matter how advanced they are, this remains an extremely expensive and risky endeavor. It's possible the invaders will bring a small number of breeding settlers, but this number will likely be very limited due to transport costs and military priority. Therefore, any alien casualties will be far more costly than our own. As the guerrilla war drags on for decades, one of the top priorities will be quickly capturing and reverse engineering alien technology. In doing so, the technological gap between humans and aliens will shrink. Casualties on our side will begin to decrease after each encounter as the human brain, Homo sapiens, learns more about enemy tactics, technology, and biology. This will make it extremely expensive for the aliens to replace lost troops and equipment. At some point, the cost-benefit equation will no longer be sustainable for them. While humanity continues its resistance despite staggering losses, as a result, alien reinforcements will find it increasingly difficult to reach Earth, and even a rescue mission for trapped alien soldiers will be prohibitively expensive. Under this pressure, the invasion will be forced to end with the aliens retreating and surrendering to humanity. The price will be immense, and the human population will be drastically reduced. However, we will win, and Earth will finally be free of invaders after decades of war, with survivors rebuilding everything from the ashes. In addition, humanity will possess weapons, technology, and knowledge many times greater than before. If the enemy decides to return, we will once again prove how powerful the human will for freedom truly is. So far, U.S. military's plan to defeat an alien invasion is likely the most realistic approach. Decades of preparation for nuclear warfare during the Cold War have given advanced countries like the United States an incredible ability to recover from civilization-ending catastrophes. However, it still doesn't account for many factors such as alien motives or cultural traits. There's no guarantee that we could organize a guerrilla resistance against such overwhelming technological superiority. This may not be the kind of Hollywood scenario filled with superheroes, but it is very likely that humanity would be completely helpless against an invasion from a highly advanced extraterrestrial civilization. What do you think about the U.S. resistance plan? Could it help defend against an invasion from an advanced alien race? Or are there flaws you would like to point out? Don't hesitate to leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching. See you again in the next videos.